Look at your phone. You just sent a text that actually mattered. Not a meme, not a one-word reply, but something you actually put thought into. 1 hour passes, then two. You check her profile, and there it is, the online status. That little green dot is staring back at you like a direct challenge. Suddenly, the three dots appear. Your heart hammers against your ribs. You wait, and then they vanish. Right now, your chest is tightening. That's cortisol flooding your system. It's a localized fight or flight response that's stripping away your logic and replacing it with pure, unadulterated anxiety. Most guys can't handle that pressure. They start typing, "Hey, you there?" Or "Did I say something wrong?" Then they delete it. Then they type it again. But here's the cold truth. That second text is where you surrender. Her silence isn't a crisis. It's actually the leverage you've been missing to flip the power dynamic entirely. Stop trying to explain why you're a catch. When you try to convince a woman to like you, you're essentially begging with better vocabulary. It's the paradox of chasing. The harder you push for her approval, the more she subconsciously labels you as a man with zero options. Biologically, women look for an emotional navigator, a man who can pilot his own ship through a storm without looking for a lighthouse in her. If you can't handle a simple silence on a Tuesday night, how is she supposed to trust you to handle anything of actual substance? I remember thinking that if I just showed enough heart and explained why we were a perfect match, she'd finally see the light. I was wrong. I realized that every time I explained myself, I was just handing her the receipts for my own insecurity. This is the divide between the convincer and the trigger. The convincer is the guy who texts a wall of text to explain his loyalty or his future plans. Guy, I really feel like we have a unique connection, like we both love the same music and have similar goals. I think we'd be amazing together because that's a death sentence. You're handing her a finished drawing when she wanted to paint the picture herself. The trigger uses the 0 to 1 rule. You offer zero certainty about where she stands, but your presence carries all the weight. Girl, what are you doing? Guy, doing something interesting. I'll tell you about it when I'm free. Then you stop. You aren't reporting for duty. You're opening a loop in her brain that her imagination is forced to fill. When you play the convincer, you might get a nice reply, but it's a brutal trade-off. You're buying 5 minutes of her attention by losing her respect forever. Real attraction doesn't grow through logic. It grows through self-discovery. She needs to believe she discovered you, not that you sold yourself to her like a clearance item. To become that trigger, you need the tool that 99% of guys lack. It's called sovereignty. Look, the mistake isn't what you say. It's the fact that she owns your mood. You need to establish response sovereignty. This is about decoupling your internal peace from the speed of her reply. Most guys trade their long-term value for a quick hit of dopamine. When you panic and reply instantly to a girl who ignored you for 10 hours, you aren't being respectful. You're broadcasting that you've been sitting by the window like a lost puppy. I've seen guys destroy a connection because they couldn't handle the gap. Look at David, a 47-year-old business owner. He was seeing a woman named Alyssa and started doing everything the world calls right, texting first and always being available. She got distant fast because there was no mystery. The second David stopped prioritizing her texts and went back to his own business, the power shifted. She was the one asking where he'd been. Here's how you apply this. The situation. She disappears for 48 hours and then drops a lazy, "Hey, sorry, I was just so busy." The wrong move, guy. Busy with what? It takes 2 seconds to send a text. "I thought we were good?" That's a confession of weakness. You're telling her that while she was out living her life, you were stagnant, counting the minutes. The sovereign move. Wait another 3 to 4 hours. No rush. Guy, had a busy but solid week myself. How's yours going? By not reacting to her distance, you use what psychologists call the Zeigarnik Effect. You leave an unfinished emotional loop in her head. Instead of getting closure by seeing you upset, she's forced to wonder why you aren't mad and what you were doing that was so interesting. The trade-off is simple. You lose the comfort of immediate certainty, but you gain the magnetic pull of a man who cannot be moved. When you master the response, You create the one thing women crave most: mystery. I remember sitting there, staring at my phone, my thumb hovering over the screen. I was practically itching to send something, anything, just to break the tension. Every instinct told me to reach out, but I knew that the second I did, I'd be handing over my leverage. Silence is not a punishment, it's a mirror. When you stop rushing to fill the void, you create a space that forces her to confront her own thoughts about you. Most men are terrified of this gap, so they suffocate the attraction by being too much. I've been there. I remember meeting a woman who had this incredible grounding energy. Things were moving fast, then suddenly, the rhythm changed. I sat there for 3 days, my ego screaming at me to send a check-in text. I almost destroyed months of buildup because I couldn't handle 72 hours of quiet. But I realized that if I broke, I was just another predictable guy chasing a hit of validation. You need to understand the 2-to-1 rule. You should be listening and observing twice as much as you are speaking. This creates a vacuum. And in human psychology, a vacuum must be filled usually by her imagination. Mystery isn't about hiding who you are. It's about being selective. It's the difference between a man who gives away everything for free and a man whose attention must be earned. Look at the difference in how you handle her presence. The predictable move. Guy, you're so beautiful tonight. Honestly, I can't stop looking at you. That's a surface level script she's heard 1,000 times. It doesn't land. It just tells her she has you in her pocket. The grounded move. Guy, I like how you don't feel the need to rush and fill the silence between us. It's a rare quality. By complimenting her restraint instead of her looks, you aren't just giving a compliment, you're validating her character. You're signaling that you're not just another guy desperately clawing for her attention. You're making a trade-off here. You're giving up the safety of being a nice, predictable guy in exchange for the intense pull of a man she can't quite figure out. But remember, this power is only effective if you're willing to face the ultimate test of a man's value. This leads to a fork in the road. You can choose the fragility path, the good guy who is always available and ends up in the friend zone because he was too afraid to have a life of his own. Or you can choose the resilience path. True attraction doesn't come from her being your everything. It comes from her knowing you want her, but you don't need her to be happy. That's the abundance mindset. I don't know your specific situation, but the laws of human value don't make exceptions. When you focus on your own growth, you stop being her shadow and start being the center of your own universe. You're trading the short-term comfort of being nice for the long-term respect of being a man of substance. The choice is yours. Be the guy who waits for a text or the guy she wonders about every time you're absent. Everything we covered today is built on one thing: self-mastery. Marcus Aurelius said it best: you have power over your own mind, not the events outside of it. When you truly get that, you find your strength. Stick to the rule. Stop being the guy who begs for attention. Be the trigger for her curiosity instead. Protect your response sovereignty. Refuse to be moved by her silence. Let her imagination do the work for you. Let her be the one who concludes that you're the man she can't afford to lose. But listen, managing a screen is only half the battle. If you can't handle her shit tests in person without losing your cool, then none of this matters. I've put together a full breakdown on how to pass those tests with calm authority right here. Stay sharp, stay grounded,